is Untapped with ME, and I am ME. On this podcast, I like to do my two favorite things: tell true and crazy stories about my life in this small town of Nacogdoches, Texas, and drink beer. Lovely, delicious beer. So today we are going to be drinking Citrus Slice by Community Brewing. Citrus Slice. Do not try to say that 5 times after you have been drinking. Nope. Let's try it. It is pretty good. It is crisp and malty and lemon zesty. Yeah. I could see myself drinking it by the pool this summer. It is light looking. It is light tasting, but it is 7% ABV. So my friends, this is not for lightweights. As we like to say here, it is probably at your local Kroger, so get you some. Woohoo! Let's get started, y'all, with Sex and Money, part of our series called Murder and Crime in Nacogdoches, Texas. This is the story of Willie Foster Sellers. Rewind. We had a robbery in 1978 at the Chireno State Bank in Nacogdoches County. And the suspects are James Hoyt Powell and Willie Foster Sellers. They are part of the Mob of the South, the Dixie Mafia. Hoyt is found, but Sellers has been on the run for months. He has been on the FBI top 10 most wanted list for 2 years. He has escaped from jails, from prisons. If this were a movie, I'd cast Brad Pitt as Willie Foster Sellers for one reason only. He is very sexy, y'all. Willie Foster Sellers is a very sexy robber. Where is our sexy bandit all this time? The robbery was in October. It is now the following June. He is on the move. He is always fleeing from somewhere, fleeing from Little Rock, fleeing from Padre Island, fleeing from Georgia, fleeing from Costa Rica. He is hardly inconspicuous as he is running with his entire family. He has a wife and 4 kids. One is a newborn, y'all. 6 people on the run. What would it be to have Willie Foster Sellers as a dad? Well, you would need to know the evacuation drill. Leave everything behind, adopt new names, go to new schools, maybe don't go to school at all. Get new stuff, clear all debts. Yeah, you heard that last one right. Clear all debts. Foster does not rip off the people who help him. The family repeatedly runs through this process. Why did his wife Barbara stay with him and live this erratic, dangerous life? Stacy knows. She is the youngest daughter of Barbara and Willie Foster Sellers. She is beautiful and kind and intelligent, and I chatted with her. Let's have a drink on that. There we were, me, the daughter of the judge, chatting with the daughter of the bank robber. It was quite the thing, 30 years post the trial. Stacy is candid about her mother. Stacy tells me, my mother knew who he was, and she chose him anyway. She did whatever he asked. She did that even though it meant that she would eventually face her own federal charges. In his mind, Foster is a family man. He is an absent father, a negligent father, but he is still the dad taking the kids to cut down the Christmas tree. He has gone a lot, got to rob, got to serve some time, but he always comes back to them. He is a son who never forgets his mama, Ellen. He will call her at the greatest risk to his safety, and she will do all she can for her boy. She is a built-in babysitter for the kids so that Barbara can do his bidding. She hides things. She drives vehicles to the appointed place. Ellen contends that her Willie is not a bad person. She says, He's a good boy. He's a Christian boy. He's not all that bad. He's not dangerous at all. Well, that's some crazy mama poo-poo. In one manhunt, Foster is all alone. No mama, no wife, no friend to save him. He is in the swamps of Florida. For 2 days, he is running, floating, and swimming in that dirty water. He comes across a car on a farm. He needs that car. He busts into the nearest home pointing a gun. Foster doesn't want to hurt them. He just wants to take the car and give them some money for it. Just take the money, y'all, and let him take the car. But they won't take it. They find it unethical. That is some dumb, crazy poo-poo. Okay, we're going to have a drink on that. So, you know what Sellers does? At gunpoint, Sellers forces them all into the car. This avoids a car chase with the police because now they can't call the police. They are a mama, a daddy, and a little girl. Down the road they go to Jackson, Florida. Sellers sits the whole time in the passenger seat with his gun on the daddy. Later, after Sellers drops them off, the mama and daddy tell police that Foster was real polite, real nice, and also they were real scared out of their minds. And all that time, Foster is sick, really sick. See, Foster is a diabetic. It turns out he is human after all. He has to have insulin or he is going to pass out, or worse. It is that need that is going to ultimately do him in, y'all. Lead FBI agent Blakeney knows that Sellers is a diabetic. So he's been chasing Sellers for 2 years, y'all. And he is real deep on this one. The FBI discovers that Sellers is getting insulin from a doctor in Florida. So while they are investigating that situation, they just happen to discover that Sellers has also purchased a dirt bike in Florida. He purchased it in person. The FBI asks the dirt bike shop owner to identify the buyer as Sellers. He does. They tell him to call them if he ever hears from Sellers again. Willie Foster Sellers has a plan for that dirt bike. The plan is a new getaway from the bank. This was a special dirt bike. It had a little pin that you could pull and the bike would collapse. This is going to be the greatest escape vehicle ever. They wouldn't have to use the 2-car getaway anymore. He would ditch the first car in the woods. He would get the bike from the trunk. Down the road he would go. That is some clever, crazy poo-poo. The bike needs a new power wheel. Sellers orders the part from the same bike shop where he bought the bike. He has it shipped to the Atlanta airport. He will just run in and pick it up, in and out. But the bike shop owner remembers him. Also remembers what the FBI said to do if he ever heard from Sellers again. The part arrives. Sellers goes to pick it up. Instead, the FBI picks him up. They have been casing the airport warehouse for days. One day, they see a red-headed man with a mustache casually reading a newspaper. He is reading that newspaper with his sunglasses on. Who does that? And then they recognize the man. It is Willie Foster Sellers. Agent Blakeney is waiting for him in the back of the FBI car. Willie Foster Sellers has been free for almost 8 months post the Chireno State Bank robbery. That must have been quite the moment for Blakeney. He waits patiently for his men to bring Sellers to him. He has waited so long. And then, there he is, sitting in that compressed, tight back seat. Just the two of them. Sellers is in cuffs. Blakeney is in victory. Sellers is wearing a gold chain around his neck. For Blakeney, that chain is a symbol of Sellers' gluttony at the expense of good people. The people who worked at those banks he robbed were traumatized, y'all. They had to go back to their jobs at the bank. They never stopped worrying that they would be robbed again, or worse. You can't just threaten to blow off someone's head and think that they are going to be okay, all right? Blakeney rips that gold chain from Sellers' neck. There will be no more gold chains for Willie Foster Sellers. The charges against Willie Foster Sellers and Nacogdoches are aggravated robbery and 2 counts of a stolen vehicle. And here is the big one, y'all. Willie Foster Sellers is charged with attempted capital murder. Remember how the robbers shot up the windshield of that car that came up on them in the woods? Well, that's attempted murder, y'all. But first, the state is going to try Willie Foster Sellers for aggravated robbery. That is robbery with a deadly weapon. Agent Blakeney has this all figured out. The feds want to try Willie Foster Sellers right away for federal crimes. But Blakeney says, let them wait. Let him first be tried for these state crimes because he would have the charge of the aggravated robbery, but also the capital murder charge, attempted capital murder. And that meant a lot of time, y'all. That meant a lot of time. If Sellers is tried in a federal court, he might get only 25 years maximum. That's the legal constraint. But in Nacogdoches, Sellers could get 99 years. So that raises the stakes for Sellers to get the hell out of Nacogdoches, Texas, right here, right now. Everyone in Nacogdoches is crazy poo-poo nervous. I was one of them, y'all. Those FBI agents aren't escorting me and my sister to school for nothing, right? Deputies install a bulletproof shield in front of the bench, in front of my daddy, the judge. Why? Because they fear someone might shoot my daddy. Remember that a federal judge has just been murdered in Texas just months before. And the hitman was a member of the Dixie Mafia. Sellers is a member of the Dixie Mafia. We have heard that Sellers says that he will kill anyone who tries to take him in. We have heard that Sellers says that he will not be taken alive. We have also heard that he is a person of interest in the murder of one Jimmy Miller. He is also a person of interest in the murder of his former accomplice's girlfriend. And he is also a person of interest in the murder of a police officer killed in a bank robbery shootout. Well, he may be sexy looking, but y'all, that don't mean he won't murder one of us. Sure, Willie Foster Sellers is locked up in the Nacogdoches County jailhouse. Sure, Sheriff Lightfoot has a 6-man team on Sellers all day. Sure, there is an officer sleeping in the cell next to Sellers. Sure, state troopers sit in the courtroom dressed in civilian clothes, ready for whatever. Are we really safe? The Nacogdoches County Commissioners are pretty fired up about all the county funds for these extra security measures that Sheriff Lightfoot is spending. The county is spending up to $1,800 a week to protect the people from Willie Foster Sellers. Now, that would be about $8,000 a week today. Sheriff Lightfoot tells those commissioners, we're just trying to keep somebody from getting killed. If we let everything like it is, somebody is liable to get killed. Yeah. In other trials and other courts, the security for Willie Foster Sellers is far more than it was here. In one instance, a handcuffed Willie Foster Sellers passes through the courthouse hall, and you know what is lined up on either side? U.S. Marshals, armed with machine guns and shotguns. Sheriff Lightfoot was right to step up security. Judge Jack Pierce of the 145th District Court, my daddy, is not daunted by sexy, slick Willie Foster Sellers. I'm just going to have to take another drink on that because that's my daddy. They called Judge Pierce the hanging judge. They did. He did not put up with foolishness. He did not allow a defendant to address him. Men reporting for jury selection had to wear coats and ties. If they showed up without a coat and tie, they were sent home to get them. Tim James, former district attorney, said Judge Pierce could destroy an unprepared lawyer. He said, in his prime, you couldn't touch him. He's one of the smartest people you could ever meet. Another attorney, not willing to give his name, said, he would respect you if you knew the law as well as he did, but if you didn't, he'd run over you and chuckle about it. Judge Jack Pierce is ready for Willie Foster Sellers in court. But at home, Judge Pierce is scared sick for the safety of his 2 little girls and their mama. The court is packed to hear what Willie Foster Sellers has to say. Well, he says he did not rob the Bank of Chireno. That is expected. But what he says next is not. It's some poo-poo. He says he wants to defend himself. He wants to be the star of the show. He does not intend to just sit on the sidelines. The truth is that he could probably do it. He has defended himself in not 1, but 2 previous trials. He was not successful, but he did it. He mastered quite a bit of law while incarcerated. He has the smarts to execute rudimentary legal procedure. And he has the sex appeal to impress a jury. Well, Judge Pierce is compelled to agree to it. But Sheriff Lightfoot won't give Sellers access to the Nacogdoches Law Library. He says it is too close to the judge's chambers. Well, it is indeed right next door. Sellers has to take a court-appointed attorney. Everyone in Nac knows who that will be. Tom P. Simph. Simph is Judge Pierce's lion tamer. He appoints Simph as counsel to the absolutely most difficult clients. Kenneth Palafox, who tied up his father-in-law and blew him away. Donald Davis, who stomped a man to death because he thought he was Lucifer. And Christian Oliver, who beat an old man with a rifle like he was swinging a golf club. Simph represents them all. And now he is standing by and for Willie Foster Sellers, American gangster on the top 10 most wanted list. Is there a chance that maybe Foster did not rob the Bank of Chireno? Simph presents the following. There is a local man who says he saw Foster in the parking lot of Memorial Hospital. That is where the blue and white truck was stolen. Well, now he cannot identify Sellers in a lineup. There is a second man who suddenly, during the trial, says that he too saw Sellers in the Memorial Hospital parking lot a full year ago. Well, he describes a man that is not at all Sellers. There are the witnesses at the Chireno State Bank. Well, they have been blocked from testifying because the DA showed them pictures of Sellers, and that could influence their memory. And there is James Hoyt Powell. He returns to the Nacogdoches courtroom to testify to the jurors in person. Well, he says that Sellers did not do it. He admits that he did. He says his accomplice is Jimmy Miller. He says he is snitching on Jimmy because he stole his part of the money. But remember, Jimmy is dead, y'all. All right. Here is what was the most exciting moment of the whole trial. It is a witness for the defense. It is a woman, a good-looking woman, a former stripper. It is Foster's wife, Barbara Sellers. We have been looking forward to this testimony, not so much for what she has to say. We just want to see her. Apparently, she had once made her living dancing topless at a nightclub in Atlanta. The press describes her as a busty redhead. The FBI calls her the girl with the twin 44s. Here in Nacogdoches, the law was calling her Miss Double D. In private, obviously. Someone circulates a photo of Miss Double D showcasing her assets. That is some very exciting, crazy poo-poo. Barbara Louise Bush was a Georgia peach of a girl. Well-groomed, conservative, sweet, innocent. She loved God and America. In the 10th grade, she dropped out of high school to, in her own words, chase boys. But no one thought Barbara Bush would grow up to be a stripper. No one thought Barbara Bush would grow up to hide and abet the most prolific bank robber in American history. But she did. In 1970, she met a preacher, 14 years older. She fell in love with that preacher. P.S. He was not a preacher, y'all. It was Sellers. Barbara is expected to make a grand entrance. She is going to fly into Nacogdoches. Fly. And she will be the pilot at the wheel, y'all. Yeah. Barbara Sellers can fly a plane. Her husband learned to fly a plane, and he encouraged her to do the same. And she did. Not bad for a person with only a 10th grade education. They own a number of different planes. It is an avocation. It is a vocation. It is all part of the getaway. Drive away from the bank in one car, ditch it, get in another car, drive to the airport, fly away. And the person flying them away was Barbara Sellers, y'all. So back up. Remember that the stolen third car in our robbery, the SFA truck, is found at the Tyler Airport. Did Barbara Sellers land there for a quick pickup of our robbers? We can ask her about that when she arrives for court. She lands at the Nacogdoches County Airport, but she is not in court to testify at the appointed time. Synth asked Judge Pierce to delay the testimony to the next day. "Is your witness in town?" Judge Pierce asked. "Yes." "Why can't she be here?" Judge Pierce asked. "Well, she needs to freshen up at the hotel, Your Honor. Oh, also, she needs a taxi from the airport to the hotel." Judge Pierce is having none of that. Her taxi is a deputy. He picks her up at the airport as instructed by Pierce. He does not allow her to change clothes as instructed by Pierce. He escorts her immediately to the courthouse, straight to the courtroom, straight to Judge Pierce. She arrives a hot mess, but not hot as in sexy. Hot as in disheveled and scattered. She is no showgirl today. Her hair is a mess. Her face has no makeup. She wears jeans and a t-shirt. This in a court where the judge made all the men wear ties and the women wear skirts. And Barbara Sellers is ticked off. Really ticked off. She does not want to be there. She certainly does not want to be there looking like that. How dare they not let her freshen up? She blames the FBI. She tells the jury that she fears the FBI. She is afraid that they will throw her out the window of her hotel room. That would be quite a fall from the 6th floor of the local Fredonia Hotel. After her testimony, Nacogdochians are looking up at the sky and listening for the buzz of a plane. She might come back. She might take Foster with her. She might take one of us out in doing so. Are our fears consuming us? Are we overreacting? The FBI shadowing the children of the judge, the bullet bulletproof glass in front of the judge, the officers sleeping adjacent to Sellers' cell. No, we are not overreacting. Now we know that Sellers really was plotting an escape. He admits it to the author of the book, Dixie Mafia Gangster, The Audacious Criminal Career of Willie Foster Sellers. He was working on it all the time he stayed in Nacogdoches County Jail. The law keeps this a secret back then, but now I can share all the details. There was a tip to the Texas Rangers. That tip was that one of Sellers' buddies was going to break Sellers out. Would the Dixie Mafia be in Nacogdoches, Texas? There was a mysterious truck found parked in downtown Nacogdoches with a loaded gun under the front seat. Was that the getaway car? There were letters from Sellers to his wife that provided casual but detailed instructions regarding his cell location. Was that his way of making sure he could be found for a big breakout? And there was a bribe Sellers made to a deputy. He offered him $20,000 in return for his assistance. That would be about $84,000 today. The most incriminating evidence of a pending escape was Sellers' legal pads. Lawyers almost always give those to defendants so they can scribble notes during a trial. Legal pads have a cardboard binding on one end that holds all the pages together. You can easily remove it. Someone did remove them from Sellers' pads, apparently, and what the law found there was a scary surprise: 4 hacksaw blades. Sellers would later say that the only reason he did not use those hacksaw blades to break out, the only reason, is because Deputy C.B. Copeland was sleeping in the cell next to him. Well, we make it to sentencing day without incident. It is October 12th, 1979. It is exactly 1 year post the Chireno State Bank robbery. Is it possible that Willie Foster Sellers will be found not guilty? The main problem for the defense is the hair. In that abandoned green Chrysler was a ski mask. And on that ski mask was some hair. And that hair belonged to Willie Foster Sellers. The verdict is guilty. Guilty of aggravated robbery. Judge Pierce reads the jury's recommended sentence, 99 years. What will happen to Foster Sellers? He has a family he loves. He has a mama that loves him. He has a whole posse of outlaws who would do anything for him. First, he will serve time for federal crimes. He is sent to Marion Penitentiary in Illinois. It is the most secure federal penitentiary in the Midwest. Willie Foster Sellers does not escape from there, but he certainly does try. If he can't break out, then he will find a way to get out soon. So get this. He continues to study the law, and he uses that knowledge and that skill to advocate for himself. And he somehow reduces his federal sentence from 65 years to 23 years. And the really good news is that the sentencing order in Judge Pierce's court allows for state and federal time to be served concurrently. Then there is parole and other opportunities to chip away at time. Sellers just may get out, y'all. Well, not so fast. Judge Pierce then does something judges do not do. It is 1989. 10 long years have passed since the trial. Judge Pierce issues a corrected order. Judge Pierce changes the original sentence. He does so by replacing concurrent time with consecutive time. Once Sellers finishes federal time, he must come back to Texas to complete his state time. That is some crazy, maybe not even legal poo-poo. Judge Pierce is checkmating Willie Foster Sellers. Willie Foster Sellers comes back to Texas to serve time for the Chireno State Bank robbery. In the Terrell unit in Livingston, Texas, he is just 1 hour from Nacogdoches. He has lived all over the South. He has lived in exotic countries, but he chose this little town for this big robbery, and now he is tied to it forever. There is no one to mail him cutting cords glued into shower shoes. There is no one to fly in for a grand escape. Barbara Sellers has a surprise ending, y'all. She graduates with honors from college. She also gets a master's. She becomes a special needs teacher. Barbara is no longer Foster's partner in crime or love. So in 2000, Foster divorces her. They had been married for 30 years. After January 2004, there is no mother to remind Foster that at heart, he's really a good boy. His mother, Ellen, dies in January. 4 months later, Willie Foster Sellers has to face the truth. He dies from leukemia in prison. It is just 2 days before his 70th birthday. Willie Foster Sellers, notorious escape artist, learns that there is one thing from which even he cannot escape: death. That story has fascinated me for so long. I lived part of that story. I wish my daddy were here to know that I valued his work enough to tell this story. I know you think it is the story of Willie Foster Sellers, and it is, but these stories for me are always about my daddy. Next time, on our bonus edition, an interview with court reporter Jerry Poole and a special guest. Yes, Dan Norton is going to join us at Jerry Poole's pool to talk about Willie Foster Sellers. Dan was there, y'all. He was working for the DA office as an investigator. What did he think of Willie Foster Sellers? We will find out. So, subscribe and follow and tap in to Untapped with ME.